Hello, my name is Leah Hills and I'm a local writer. I've been living in the Dandenong Ranges for about 25 years now. We're going to be looking at some writing techniques so that you can write some poetry to put onto your piece of wood. Emma's here today, Emma Jennings, to help me, and also she's going to demonstrate some ways that you might like to transfer those words onto your wood. We're going to be looking at 3 techniques today, specifically with the haiku form, which you might be familiar with or it might be the first time. And you don't need to have had any experience as a writer to do this. So shall we get started? So the first technique we're going to look at is the what, when, where. With this technique, you use one line that looks at the what, so what's happening, one line that looks at when, so when it's happening, and one line that looks at where it's taking place. And you can experiment with the order of the line, so it doesn't have to go in that order, it can be a when, where, what. And the idea with this, and with all haiku, is you're really trying to capture a moment in time. And what's really great about using the haiku form is when you're dealing with difficult subject matter, like we are when we're writing about our responses and memories or follow on from the storm, that we're using something that has a lot of structure. And if we're dealing with difficult emotional responses, it's kind of quite contained. So I'm just going to give you an example of a what, when, where haiku. So here we go. Morning after the storm. Outside my bedroom window, a magpie preens. So in this haiku, the morning after the storm is the when, the outside my bedroom window is the where, and a magpie preens is the what. So change the order around there. And the idea is that here we're capturing, a still moment after the storm. It's very visual, this particular piece. But like I said, you can change the order around and put the when first, or the where, or the what. So I'll just read it one more time. Morning after the storm. Outside my bedroom window, a magpie preens. The next technique we're going to be looking at is called zoom in or zoom out. And it's sort of like if you imagine when you're watching a film and the camera zooms in on something, or the camera's focused on something and it zooms out. We're going to be doing this line by line. So you might start off by focusing on something really closely in your first line, and then as you write, you kind of zoom out away from that thing. Or you start out sort of with a broad landscape and then zoom into something line by line. And the idea is that by focusing on a small object that you're zooming into or out of, you're saying that it's really important to what you're talking about. So it might be something that was kind of an image after the storm, or even later a moment of regeneration as the bush begins to recover. And this can be really interesting if you're talking about an object that people don't normally notice. Haiku is wonderful for this. So I'm going to give you an example first of zooming in using this technique. On a crushed bench, orange fungi together drop spores. I'll say it again. On a crushed bench, orange fungi together drop spores. So here we've started from a kind of a broader view, looking at the crushed bench, and with each line we get closer, then you see the fungi, and then you see that kind of microcosm of the spores being dropped. The second example is of a zoom out poem. So you start with something close up and then you zoom out. Here we go. Tall man strokes a wooden eagle, gallery of fallen trees. So here we can see the tall man, he's in there, he's stroking, you can see his hands, and you see this wooden eagle, this sculpture, and then you draw out and you can see this larger gallery of sculptures that were created with wood after the storms. I'll read it again. Tall man strokes a wooden eagle, gallery of fallen trees. So as you can see with this technique, you can either do the zoom in or the zoom out, and you decide what it is key that you want to focus on. So the third technique we're going to look at is opposites and parallels. Now with this technique you take, rather than a single image that you're kind of zooming in and out of or like focusing on the what, when, where, with this one we're putting two separate images side by side. The reason why we do this is we're asking the reader or the listener or in this case, the person who'll be looking at the haiku that you've put on your piece of wood to think about what are the similarities and the differences between these two things, almost like a tension between the two images. And these things can be images that are quite close together, that might even be occurring in the same place, or they can be two separate images that come from quite diverse locations and time. So it can be a really interesting one if you want to bring together different times after the storm, like something that was quite immediate and then something that happened later on. And it can be a really nice way, because we talked about how this is quite difficult material, and so we're using a very structured form of poetry, haiku, almost like a bit of a safety net that it gives you that kind of structure. But it's also really nice with these forms that we can really look at moments of hope that come after the storm. So the one that I've chosen to share with you today sort of draws on that moment of hope and bringing together two images that might not necessarily occur in the same place, but are connected, and I think as you're listening, you'll feel the ways in which they're connected. So here we go. Debris in the swimming pool, the bay visible for the first time. I'll read it again. Debris in the swimming pool, the bay visible for the first time. Two separate images, but they're connected by water. And one could be, straight after the night of the storm. And then the next one is something that you see later as a walk for the first time. I remember this myself, walking in the forest later on, and you're actually getting these glimpses of the bay that you've never seen before. So there's kind of a sadness there, but there's also a beauty there and new visions that you can see through the forest. So yeah, this one, opposites and parallels, finding two different images that are somehow connected here by water, and they kind of speak to each other and have a bit of a conversation about that experience. So now that we've looked at the three techniques of how you might write your haiku, let's have a think about how you might then transfer that onto the wood. So you might decide that you would like to put the entire haiku, the 3 lines, onto the wood, like we've just seen that Emma's done. Or you might find that there's just one line that really stands out, and that's what you'd like to transfer onto the wood. Or even maybe one word that's really encapsulated what you want to say. I mean, it's all about just getting the words down there on the page and getting writing and finding what really tells the story that you want to tell. And then when you're actually going to transfer that onto the wood, for example, you might, if you've got a piece of wood like this which has straight lines, you might like to follow the grain and then it's going to be, coming out in straight lines like it might on a piece of paper. And then this one, I mean, this beautiful, lovely, big piece of wood, we've got this gorgeous imperfection. So somehow your words might incorporate that imperfection, or they might even respond to it. Like you might come in and pick up a piece of wood and then do your writing kind of in response to that piece of wood as well.
You could also go around the edges of that too. That would be interesting to go around the sides if you feel like it.
And we've got a few here that are already been done by community members who've come into some of the workshops. For example, we've got Joshua's piece here, and he's worked with paper, which he's written directly onto, and then he's torn up the paper to kind of capture the kind of the emotion of his response there.
And the tearing, the physicality of tearing is really important and related to his story. So that was a lovely physical way to talk about the work and the words and the artwork combining together. And this is Olive's beautiful piece where she's written her poem at the top on top of her beautiful painting.
Yeah, and we've got one here from Lucille, and she's actually scratched into the trunk of the tree, into the paint. So there's so many different techniques that you could try. Have you got another one there, Emma, you wanted to show?
And this lovely lady has written her words on another torn piece of paper, but she's done a collage with lots of different pieces of paper with printmaking from Joe Horsfall's workshop, some painting and ochre, and all of those pieces have been combined together on this beautiful work.
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways that you can have a go. Have a look at the other videos, but it's really just about, it's about having a go. You don't have to be a poet, you don't have to have done this kind of writing before. It's about just getting those words on the page and working out what's really going to work for you. So thanks for joining us. We really look forward to seeing what you create.
And feel free to pop into the gallery anytime and choose a piece of wood. There's a few different sizes and they're all a little bit different. So find something that jumps out at you and have fun being creative with it. We look forward to seeing what you make.